荣幸今天有机会来跟大家分享这个东西。那我必须坦诚，就是我们在这个地方，我们在政委办这边做的工作，大部分是关于就是跟大家一起协调，然后一起协作，让这个会议可以开得更好的这个角色。但坦白说，对于各位第一线可能会遇到的困难，坦白说我是比较不知道的。那如果说有什么地方，其实也许是实务上是比较难做的，那也欢迎大家晚点的时候跟我说，或者是在slide上面跟我讲。那也许我们大家可以来讨论该怎么把它做得更好。好，那我今天要跟大家分享的是开放政府的原理原则。那我先自我介绍一下，我是宇昌哦。那我是在 PD 担任的是研究员。那研究员就是一个名称啦，其实大部分都是在做协作会议的这个助理主持人的这个相关的角色。那我相信很多人其实也许今天是第一次听到开放政府这个名词哦。那开放政府到底是什么？那我们先来看一下过去的状况大概是长什么样子。那这是龚格力做的一部影片，他讲的是过去我们政府的政策大概是怎么形成的。那之前放的时候，很多公务员朋友都说，好像还蛮切合实际的，因为他们就是公务人员，所以这是他们自己就看到的这个状况。好，那如果说不幸真的要开公听会的时候呢，我们自己应该也会在很多新闻上看到，就是觉得像，这是他们2017年拍的影片，2017年年初的时候。 pass 那个工具箱。好，那这是公部门办公定位的状况。那这边这个是我想说，刚刚因为各位都有提到，就是说，网络上好像很多酸民，然后社群网站好像也很多人都骂来骂去，然后同温层的那个状况。那我觉得这支影片是蛮适合来跟大家说明说，为什么社群网站会变成这个样子。那我切一下，不好意思，就。
Your brain. Cat photos, news stories, belief structures, funny gifs, educational videos, not so educational videos, and your thinking inventory is limited. A thought without a brain, to think it dies. Now, we can treat thoughts as though they're alive, specifically alive like germs. That might sound weird, but stick with me. Take jokes. Jokes are thought germs that live in your brain, and when you tell the joke to another brain, you help it to reproduce, just like when you have the flu and sneeze to help it reproduce. This germ gets into its host by snot through the mouth, and this one by words through the ear, but it's reproduction either way. Logging onto your social media then is exposing yourself to everyone's mental sneezes. Each post a glob of snot with a thought germ trying to get into your brain. If not for permanent residence, then at least long enough to get you to press the share button and sneeze it with everyone you know. In this analogy then, a funny cat photo with the perfect caption is a superglue. Now, just as germs exploit weak points in your immune system, so do thought germs exploit weak points in your brain, aka emotions. Once inside, thought germs that press emotional buttons get their host to spread them more, measurably more. Well, except sadness. Sad thoughts don't get very far. Awe is pretty good, which is why websites that construct thought germs like biological weapons arm them with titles like 7 whatevers that will blow your mind or the shocking secret behind this thing. But anger is the ultimate edge for a thought germ. Anger bypasses your mental immune system and compels you to share it like nothing else. Being aware of your brain's weak spots is necessary for good mental health, like knowing how to wash your hands. Because even without intentional construction, any thought germ on the internet can, on its own, grow more infectious as it spreads. To talk about why, let's forget anger for a moment and go back to that cat photo. Every photo ever taken is a thought germ, and most die a quick death like the bazillion cat photos, or baby photos, posted on the internet that are never shared. But a mildly funny cat photo can grow into so much more, because just as transatlantic flights were the best thing to happen to germs, so the internet is the best thing to happen to thought germs. For once on board, that cat photo can leak into other brains, and those brains might share it, and here's the key point, occasionally change it. A Photoshop here, a tweaked caption there. Most changes are terrible, but some make the thought germ even funnier, getting more brains to share it, which results in more changes and a shot at superstardom. Thus, a lowly cat photo can achieve global brain domination, at least for a few hours. The internet, with its unparalleled ability to share and randomly change thought germs, can't help but make them stronger. With jokes, that's awesome, but with angry germs, not always so awesome, no. Angry germs, the more they're shared, undergo the same process, changing and distorting to be more aggravating. These have a better chance of spreading than their possibly more accurate, but probably also more boring rivals. But like plagues, thought germs can burn through a population too quickly. Just watch your favorite meme-generating machine for a week and you'll see the life cycle fly by. However, some thought germs have found a way around burnout. Now, I must warn you, depending on which thought germs live in your head and which you fight for, the next section might sound horrifying. So please keep in mind, we're talking about what makes some thought germs successful, particularly angry ones, and not how good or how bad the thoughts themselves are. Deep breath, calm. Thought germs can burn out because once everyone agrees, it's hard to keep talking and thus thinking about them. But if there's an opposing thought germ, an argument, then the thinking never has to stop. The disagreement doesn't have to be angry, but again, angry helps. The more visible an argument gets, the more bystanders it draws in, which makes it more visible, which is why every group from the most innocuous internet forum to the national conversation can turn into a double rage storm across the sky in no time. Wait, these thought germs aren't competing, they're cooperating. Working together, they reach more brains and hold their thoughts longer than they could alone. Thought germs on opposite sides of an argument can be symbiotic. One tool symbiotic anger germs in particular can employ is you're with us or against us. Whatever thought germ is left to the front of your brain, push it back. This video isn't about that. We're just talking about this tool, which makes it very hard for neutral brains to resist, and its divisiveness also grows its symbiotic partner. This explains why in some arguments gaining more allies also gains more enemies, because though the participants think they're involved in a fiery battle to the death, from the anger germ's perspective, one side is a field of flowers and the other a flock of butterflies. Of course planting more flowers will get you more butterflies, and getting more butterflies will pollinate more flowers. If there is some argument that splits the population and lasts forever, and that even the most neutral people find difficult to avoid, you just might be looking at a super successful pair of symbiotic anger germs that have reached ecological stability. Now, one final depressing thought, one more awe-inspiring point that will reveal the secrets of actually no, it's just depressing. When opposing groups get big, they don't really argue with each other. They mostly argue with themselves about how angry the other group makes them. We can actually graph fights on the internet to see this in action. Each becomes its own quasi-isolated internet sharing thoughts about the other. You see where this is going, right? Each group breeds thought germs about the other, and as before, the most enraging, but not necessarily the most accurate, spread the fastest. The group almost can't help but construct a totem of the other so enraging they'll talk about it all the time, which, now that you know how thought germs grow, is exactly what makes the totem always perfectly maddening. Now, all this isn't to say there's no point in arguing. That's a different video. Or that the internet isn't amazing, or that there aren't things worth trying to change people's minds about. Thought germs of all kinds come and go. But it's useful to be aware of how thoughts can use our emotions to spread, and how the more rapidly a thought is able to spread, the more chances it has to become even better at spreading through random changes that are made to it. Sometimes that's great, sometimes terrible. But if you want to maintain a healthy brain, it pays to be cautious of thoughts that have passed through a lot of other brains and that poke you where you're weakest. It's your brain, be hygienic with it.
好，那这部影片大概到这里。它其实讲的就是说，在我们的网络上，大家这些东西其实它会在我们的网络上，各种不同的想法，它很容易。假设我们一开始并没有好好的沟通，没有让大家能够有一个一定程度的共识，那么这两个不同的想法或者是对立的东西，它可能会在网络上直接萌生，然后它会变成让政府很难以抵挡的这些网络舆论。